Evan Thibodeau is an event organizer for Southwest Flow Festival, an extremely talented flow artist and juggler, and most importantly, a great friend of the channel. We discussed some awesome stories, challenges he has faced, and his triumphs along the way. Support us on Patreon for $5 a month to help us continue this project. Episode 29. Enjoy the episode, my friends, and welcome to the Poidcast. Episode 29. Evan, welcome to the podcast. How are you doing, man?
I'm fantastic. Thanks so much for having me.
Dude, we're pumped. This has been an episode that's been long awaited for many reasons. You're a great friend of the podcast, as well as you're a fantastic flow artist. So we've been really excited to get into this.
Thank you.
Take us all the way back. How and when did this flow journey start for you?
Sure. So it wasn't all that long ago in the grand scheme of things. The first time I was handed a set of poi was in 2018 at my current favorite festival. Back then it was called Juniper Jam, which was the first iteration of something that today it's called June Jam. And basically it ended up being my poi mentor for about the first year or so of my journey. You know, I was just like, what is this? It's like poi, isn't that like a Hawaiian fish dish? Or what is? Okay, can I spin those things around? And like a set of broken pod poi with capsule handles. And he's like, well, the handles light up, so just spin them by the pods. Okay. And that's where it all started. And honestly, at the time when I picked it up, I was in a very unique situation where I had just taken into a keen interest into minimalism. So at that point in my life, I had just sold pretty much all the things that I own. I sold my car. I bought my truck and a little tow behind, sort of like off-road ruggedized teardrop trailer. And I was also getting into my career of professional guiding at the time when I was doing like these backcountry luxury guided camps through Yellowstone, North Rim, Bryce Canyon, Zion, Grand Canyon, you name it. So I had a lot of time on my hands, and it's funny. I originally learned how to spin poi in a teardrop trailer. I mean, just imagine how that's even possible.
Right.
You really know today. So I had a lot of time on my hands. And I've always been an artist. Like I've played guitar, started playing guitar when I was about 12. So I've always had the flow, right? I've snowboarded. I did downhill winter sports my whole life. And I've always known about this feeling, but I never knew there was a word connected to it. But anyway, once I had poi in my hands and I started figuring out wall plane versus wheel plane and anti-spin versus in spin, that became about an 8-hour-a-day endeavor for close to 2 years.
I knew it. Because, Evan, it's funny. I've talked about you on a couple different episodes prior, mainly Connor Kilbane. Shout out to Connor. We talked about you on that episode. And I was like, Connor, how long would you guess that Evan has been spinning poi? And he was like, maybe 7 or 8 years. I may be misquoting him, but it's it's quite fascinating and very impressive that you have actually not been spinning poi, like you said, in the grand scheme of things, very long. What year did you actually start?
2018.
Oh my God. Okay, that's crazy. That's so impressive. So
Thank
impressive
you.
for your skill level and how advanced you are in not only 2, but 3 as well. This podcast, my viewers know that I'm a 3 poi. I push my agenda on people, right? So they know that I love 3 poi very much. So extremely impressive. And on that note, flow state definitely exists through many different mediums. So I love that you said that you've been an artist your whole life and that you've had many different, snowboarding and music and all this stuff. I feel like the artistic ability can definitely translate to many different mediums. And I'm sure that your work ethic and then also you just being an artist excelled you in many ways. Tell me about when you first started spinning poi. Did you have a lot of local inspirations? Were you learning more from people online? How were you learning in the very beginning of your journey?
A little bit of column A, a little bit of column B, but mostly online. a lot of YouTube videos, watching artists who inspired me. Did have I really, with my style, especially with Tupoi, I really, really try to achieve like grace through relatively simple patterns, but do it in a way that it's presented where, both like experienced poi spinners and people who've never seen it before find some beauty in it. And I do attribute a lot of that to who I consider my poi mentor, who you can't find on Instagram, right? That's usually the story, isn't it?
Yeah, this guy, I swear, you guys don't know
Yeah,
him.
I
He has no
swear
videos,
he
but I
exists.
swear, guys, he's insane. Yeah,
But like
totally.
his whole style was very like graceful, very clean lines, full extensions, no T-Rex arms. Like, you could tell he didn't practice indoors in winter.
So, really quick on that subject, I know we're going to get into this here later in the episode, but one of the videos that you sent me is the great and powerful Marvin Ong, okay? And like
Yep,
he
sure is.
embodies exactly what you're talking about right now. Is he had some great tech back then. Of course he was a great tech spinner, right? But what stood out about Marvin was the cleanliness and the presentation of what he was doing was immaculate, right? So I can see that in you, and I love that you sent that video over, and we'll get into that here in a little bit. But
Great.
yeah, when you're getting started, you had a little bit of both online inspirations, a little bit of you had a poi mentor that was around you. When do we can kind of transition to the next topic, I suppose, based on that. When did you attend your first Flow Festival, and which one was it?
Oh, that's such a funny question that I get all the time as like a Flow Arts Festival founder, organizer, and director today. I got to be honest with you. The first proper Flow Festival I attended was that shirt that you're wearing.
No shit. You're
Yep,
kidding. Okay. All right, y'all. For some context here, okay, because you see Evan over here, this side. Okay, he's wearing the 2023 version of Southwest Flow Festival. I am wearing the 2022 version of Southwest Flow Festival. So, and then again, for those of you who don't know who Evan is, a little bit of backstory about him. He is the organizer, the director, whatever you want to call him. He is the man in charge of, I'll just say greatly, I'll say that you're in charge of Southwest Flow Festival. But yeah, it's very admirable and incredible how well the first one went off. And you had never even been to a proper Flow Festival before. So how did you know how to run it? I mean, how did you even know where to start, man? You hadn't even been to another one before. How did you run that?
No, it's a good question. So I had been hosting these smaller gatherings for a few years here in Flagstaff. In fact, that's where I originally met Marvin. Was one of my little like forest gatherings. I'm pretty sure it was Kevin Ringel and like the whole Phoenix like juggling flow artist crew came up, and yeah, it was like 20, 30, 40 people gatherings outside of Flagstaff. We called it Fire on the Mountain. I took fire safety very, very seriously. And I still do, of course. But like coming up through it, it was like we live in a very wildfire prone area, right? Flagstaff, Arizona. We get shut down it's a hard place to be a fire spinner.
Constantly.
Constantly. So we've got forest closures, even private properties you're not technically allowed to spin on within certain fire restrictions. So like the safety component, that was easy. And we understood like our whole crew was on the same page for the safety of how to run an organized like small fire gathering for the weekend. And then having got brought on, so I'd mentioned Juniper Jam. That was the first place I picked up poi. That was 2018. Now, since 2021, I am the Flow Arts and Fire Safety Director for June Jam. And I've done performance coordination, fire safety coordination, flow arts coordination, workshop coordination for other events leading up to Southwest Flow Festival. So I had sort of this like piecemealed experience from non-flow festivals, but specifically through the lens of a flow artist who is in charge of the performances and fire circles. So I had a lot of that already done. and then just like, I guess, exposure. It was like festival production osmosis. Just like being involved with so many, it was
Yeah,
like, oh wow, we need porta potties. Oh, we're going to need a security team. We're going to need medical. We're going to need harm reduction. We're going to need, active bystander training for our staff. We're going to need meals, food vendors, trinket like just all the stuff
sure.
that makes a festival. And it was, again, just sort of piecemealed over the years through my experience in the festival industry.
Yeah, and Evan, so I remember, I will never forget the offer that I received for Southwest Flow Festival 2022 was, hey, we're having this flow festival here in like, what was it, like 8 weeks? Was it
Yeah,
8 weeks?
8 weeks. That's how
Holy
the first
shit.
year. Permitted, insured, and everything.
Absolutely chaos. Absolutely. You know what? I say chaos, but what I really mean is that is what I would have imagined it was like for you. And I'm sure there was a ton of pressure for you as an organizer and somebody who's in charge, right? But the festival went off wonderfully. It went off without a hitch. I mean, there was a couple things, obviously, as an organizer and somebody who has a role of, responsibility. Obviously, you're going to run into issues that you're like, hey, we need to cover this. We need to do this. We need to, there's always these unexpected barriers that you're going to run into, but you handled them all with grace, and you handled them all
Thank you.
so professionally. And the event was fantastic. And for that little of planning, or that few short weeks of planning, it was so well executed. And I just have always spoken about the first Southwest. I'm like, holy shit, dude, how did he do it? Like, that was truly incredible. Walk me through, what was the first Southwest Flow Festival like for you in terms of organizing and running and making it happen, in terms of the buildup, and then also in terms of when it was actually happening? What struggles did you have? What were some of the highlights? What was that whole experience like for you?
Well, that weekend definitely took a few years off my life. It was a lot. It was a lot, between the uncertainties in the weather out here, right? That's usually one of the biggest things, is like, yeah, where Gateway Ranch is, it's about 1,000 feet lower than Flagstaff, which means it's a bit hotter. So when we're through peak summer season, it's just too hot. We can't do anything out there. And then, as you experienced in October, the first year of Southwest Flow Festival, October is a bit of a wild card month. That was like, I still call it, like, I will never forget the great microburst of 2022. We got, I don't know if I ever told you the final numbers that we received from the local weather station, is we had 2 inches of rain in 15 minutes with 80-mile-per-hour gusts.
It was actually crazy. I'm gonna let you continue.
I almost evacuated that entire tent.
I'm gonna let you continue on your experience and your role and everything, but just a quick insertion of a story here. So I'm getting ready to do my act. I'm getting ready for the gala, the second night, the show, the main show, right? Not the fire show, but the main show in the tent, huge circus tent, you guys. Okay, so we're all getting ready, lighting's getting set up, everybody's gathering, there's a big crowd already developing. Okay.
It sounds fun. I'm like starting to sweat over here just
remembering. Dude, it was crazy. It was crazy. So things are starting to happen, and we're getting very close to the gala. Okay. Huge circus tent, all this equipment in here. We have lighting getting set up. Everything's coming together to have this show here, which is the biggest part of the whole festival, right? So about 30 minutes before the show was set to start, all of a sudden it just starts one of the craziest downpours. And I worked in Alaska doing search and rescue. I've been through crazy storms before, you guys. This is no joke, one of the most intense downpours I've been through. Okay. So the downpour starts happening. Right. And I'm like looking around, and I was like, okay, everybody's starting to like kind of get little, everybody's starting to have some questions here. Is this going to go off or whatever? And then the wind starts, and the wind gets crazy, and all the sides of the circus tent starts getting blown up, and it was just this pandemonium. Like everybody inside, like I was looking around, I was like, are we about to get out of here? Like, are we about to evacuate the circus tent? You know? And this is the best part of the story. Everybody's stressing. Everybody's like low key panicking about this shit. And I look at Evan, and Evan is fucking cool, calm, cool, and collected. Evan's like, we're fine. Everything's fine. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. Like, it was just I was panicking as a performer. I can't even imagine the stress that you were under as an organizer, right? Well, like, just the maturity of yourself as an organizer, and you're like, nope, we're going to do this. We're going to do this. We started ratcheting, like double ratchet strapping everything down, and we started securing the tent more. You had people doing, you're like, you do this, you guys are over here. Like, you were just delegating everybody to like parts of the tent to make it more secure. And bottom line of the story, you guys, the show went on without a hitch. The weather relented, and Evan pulled through as an organizer. And I have so much respect for you throughout that whole thing. Like every like possible catastrophe, like Evan was just, he was like, all right, everybody calm down. We're here for it. It's good. We're going to do this. We're going to handle it there. Like, it was good. So I'm sure that was an extremely stressful situation for yourself, but it was just as an organizer, man, you handled that shit, bro. You handled that. It was good.
Thank you for that recognition. I oftentimes like my persona at these events, and maybe I think I got this from just working in restaurants in high school and whatnot, but like,
ooh, the
duck on water persona, right? On the surface, cool as a cucumber, just floating along. Under the water, things are going crazy. So duck on water, that's always part of my like team meetings and staff meetings, is like, I'll let you know when it's time to panic.
Right.
I missed that whole show too, because I was running around the tent just securing stakes and rationing things down. I come inside, like, I didn't have time to put a raincoat on. I remember coming inside and just seeing a sea of smiles and cheers.
It was so
I'm
great.
Like a sad, dripping, wet Charlie Brown who can like barely has the energy to put a smile on, but it was something else.
Right. And dude, like when I say
evacuating,
I get it. I understand. I was close to being like, dude, we should probably get out of here. Like this tent weighs a couple 1,000 pounds. Like if this thing falls, like, I mean, casualties, guys. Like I'm not trying to scare anybody, but like it ended up being fine. Everything was great. The tent is very sturdy. Everything was good. He did the proper things that you should have done. But when it initially started happening, the tent was like blowing in water. Like there was water being catapulted through the sides of the tent, and there was like electrical equipment everywhere, and like it was a little bit hectic for a second, but show went on without a hitch. And Arizona weather can be unpredictable in that time period, which is why you moved it back a month, right? You moved it back to September. It was in October the first year, so took a little bit of precaution there with the weather, right?
Yep, absolutely. And right, like that's the thing, is like my job is to keep several hundred people safe, happy, and well taken care of. All the music and stuff, that's great extra stuff. But my job is to keep everyone safe. Right. And that's always the priority. And that's why we really like, we knew the wind ratings of the tent. We knew how much water could come down from the top. We made sure to secure everything to the T based on the instructions. We spent a week just prepping how to set the tent up, clearing the land, making sure it was good. We had an anemometer out to measure the wind speed to make sure that the tent wasn't, the environment wasn't beyond what the tent could handle. And if it was, like, it was getting close. And that's where I was like,
totally
30 seconds more of this, we're getting everybody out of here.
Totally.
But that's when it all stopped.
Exactly. It did stop just in time. Everything when the performance when the show got started, the wind died down, the rain died down, everything cooled down, and we had a great time. It was very, very fun. But this is part of the challenges of you running a festival. But what were some of the other maybe unexpected challenges that you didn't anticipate running this festival? What were some things that you took away as far as you're growing as an organizer, as a leader? what were some things you maybe didn't expect about running this festival?
Well, how much luck it takes. um, it's a lot of skill, it's a lot of teamwork, it's a lot of putting the right people in the right places, with, peppered with luck for sure. Um, but some of the things that we learned is just like ethical land use. Like my background is in forestry and environmental conservation. That's what I
Hmm.
studied in school. That's what I did straight out of college. I still am in the outdoors industry today, and preach environmental conscientiousness as much as I can, especially with these events. So, like, one of the things is ethical land use. We didn't expect that many vehicles, right? So then what do you do with vehicles when you don't have land cleared out to host them?
Yeah.
What do you do when your main stage is a 65-foot dome, which sounds big, but when your stage is in there and people want to dance and it's a flow arts and fire spinning festival and you can really only hold like 5 to 6 people in there, what do you do?
Hmm.
And that's why we built a second fire spinning area for last year.
Which was a
Um,
smart move, by the way. Great move.
yeah. Other things that we learned is how sound carries out there or does not, right? It's like weird out in the desert, like sound carries, but bass doesn't. It's this interesting thing. So like, I'd learned like on the showcases, the aerialists had a really hard time hearing the music from the dome. That
Interesting. And they're
secondary.
choreographed to the music. They have to be on point with that. Yeah.
Yep. Yep. So like over the cheers and stuff, it's like the music kind of disappears.
Right.
Same with the secondary fire circle, which was more of like kind of a chill spot for people to hang out and like, heckle their friends, as
Yeah,
opposed to in the
totally,
dome is
totally.
like, yeah, go get it next to the stacks as a fire
Right.
spinner. Like how often do we get to do that? So like this year, right, one of the solutions for our sound that we're talking about is instead of like, I mean, you remember that system the first year?
Hmm.
I don't think we pushed that past about 15% capacity. It was a
Right.
like $170,000 Hennessy sound system that we did not need. So like this year, we're kind of dialing down a little bit on the main system, but we're going to have auxiliary monitors out by the fire pit pointed back towards the dome, and another one at the aerial rigs pointed towards the dome. So we're spreading out even sound throughout the listening area instead of like cranking it up from one point of origin. So like, I don't know, flow artists, right? Like I see somebody do something cool and I want to go over to ask them at an appropriate time, like, yo, how'd you do that? And it'd be
Right.
great to have that conversation on the main stage while still being able to feel that music, but not like have your skull crushed by it.
Absolutely. I will say one of my least favorite things about being at a huge like music festival or like at a show that I just can't even talk to people at. One thing
Hmm.
I loved about the secondary fire circle is like we can bullshit. You can hear us heckling each other. It's like a
Yeah.
more just chill environment where we're all able to spin fire still, but we're disconnected a little bit. We can still hear the music, but it's much more personal in that sense. So
Hmm.
definitely thought that was a fantastic change. And many of the people that went the first year that also went to the second year, everybody that I talked to was like, I am so glad they added this,
Yeah.
because it was a huge, huge, great change to that. And yeah, with the whole the tent setup on the first year, I will say that I'm lucky that I was there. As much as it sucked, I had been on a plane all day. I was like traveling and I got there and they were like,
Yes.
hey guys,
I
we need
still
help.
feel
And I
bad.
was like, I'm there, dude. I'm there. No, don't feel bad, bro. We were there and it was it was a first time hosting a festival, first time putting this thing on, and we were there and we threw up that tent, dude, but that was some serious work, man. People don't understand
Hmm.
how incredibly difficult it is to stage this whole thing with the massive circus tent that can hold hundreds of people, right? Like there's a lot that goes into it logistically that
Hmm.
is a lot of people don't understand how difficult it is to do that.
Right, right. And I think that's one of the big things that I've learned as well is like as the, so like Southwest Flow Festival is my brainchild. It sprouted from again this little gathering I did called Fire on the Mountain. Um, but just learning that like you can't do it all, and asking for help is a huge asset that a lot of us, I think, particularly on like the performer end of the spectrum, it's like, no, I can do it myself. Or maybe it's not even have to do with performers, like it's just a state of being. But I, like many of the people I know, have a hard time asking for help. So like, that first year, even last year, like, I founded it, organized it, directed it. I produced the Friday night Fire and Flow showcase.
Mhm.
I performed in it.
Yes, you
I
did.
taught 3 workshops that weekend. And then that's not even like considering the hundreds and hundreds of hours of work leading up to it, from contacting agents and managers for the musical talent, reaching out to flow
Right.
artists and hoping that they are active enough on their Instagram where they will respond, because like most of us don't have
Of
a
course.
website with a manager that somebody can email to get in contact for bookings, or getting 1,000 messages a day on Instagram and I just get lost in the mix, which never get offended by anyone who doesn't respond on Instagram at
Of
all. And
course.
I think everyone needs to remember that point. um, but yeah, no, it's just been a lot of learning through the logistics of it and being able to put the right people in the right places.
Mhm.
Definitely learned a lot from that first year. And just like candidly, like there was a lot of molehills turned into mountains when there was no need to be.
Right, right.
When just accept that when things are going well, don't look for things to solve. Don't look for problems, like obviously address problems as they come up, but like if things are going well, like still obviously need to keep an eye out. But that's why we have a professional security company. That's why we have a professional medical event supplier. Like,
You're designating folks in the roles that they're best equipped to handle. I love that
right.
you said that. So we kind of went over some of the just a few of the more challenging, maybe possibly negative parts of running a flow festival. But tell me about some of the highlights, man, because this is such a huge passion
Mm,
project for you, and it's such a for the amount of work and the amount of hours that you put into this thing. I'm sure that the return is not necessarily like financially. It's not like I'm not trying to like how am I going to make money? Let me run this flow festival where I have to put in a fuck ton of hours. And like, it's like you really have, and by the way, I'm very proud of you for just your accomplishments in the last 2 years about this
thank
thing.
you.
But tell me about some of the highlights and some of the gratifying moments as being an organizer, a performer, and somebody that's making this thing come together, because it's extremely special.
Sure. No, I think like honestly last year is what really, really did it for me and secured that like this is absolutely where I belong. And this is where I need to be putting my focus is, I had conversations with multiple handfuls of heavy hitting flow artists and fire spinners and professional tier, like top tier artists and performers who came up and told me like this is the thing, like this is the feeling I've been chasing after my first flow festival. This is what got me into it. And like I said, I unfortunately haven't been to any of the other ones, which is going to change this year. We are going on a circuit to
Oh,
just make the connections, talk to other people, because
yes.
it's not just about us in the Southwest, but it's hearing that people found what it is that initially brought them to this community through this event that I, put together with the help of an amazing team. That was incredibly rewarding. Hearing about, seeing friends of mine in Flagstaff bring their kids out, their teenage kids who've never seen this before, and now they're spinning poi regularly, and like sharing this again, just that feeling of both the flow state, which I think arguably takes some time and getting accustomed to your modality before you can really achieve a flow state and know what that feeling is. But really for me, it's about like exposing people to a community that like I never felt really like I knew what community was until I found this world,
Wow.
and like helping to foster that for people who are all the way to professional performers, between what I call the flow curious, and like bridging that gap. And it's like it's not about your skill level, it's just about that like we're here and we're seeking out similar things.
Right. And one thing I will say about the Flow Festival, about Southwest Flow Festival specifically, is it felt much more intimate compared to the other festivals that I've been to. The concentration of the talent per person that is there is quite literally unbelievable. And other people there that have been there can attest to this. I mean, shout out to like Marvin Ong and Jeremiah Jacobs and all the incredible jugglers and the well-rounded amount of talent that was there per person was just unbelievable. So you guys really put together a special crew as far as, the people who are able to make it happen, the groundwork, the organization, everything like that, but as well as the performers and the teachers. It felt like such an incredible opportunity for somebody who's just brand new to something to come here and be like, wow, there is an incredible amount of stuff that I can learn from this festival. And they're just, we're all hanging out all day. I mean, there's people that you can just bounce ideas off of and ask them questions, and we're all just hanging out and doing it, what it is we love to do. So you really organized a very special team in all aspects. And I think that's one of the coolest parts about this event is you really did it well in that sense.
Thank you. And on that note too, like I really, really want to big shout out to Michael Hux, my partner in Southwest Flow Festival. If anyone listening to this episode comes to the Southwest Flow Festival and meets him, can't figure out who he is, come talk to me. I will point him out. Please go give that man a gigantic hug and thank him for all of the work he does behind the scenes. Like I, at this point, couldn't do this without him.
That's facts. Hux is awesome. He's the man. I got to interact with him and spend a decent amount of time here and there with him throughout the both of the years that I attended. And you got some really great people surrounding you. So on this note of discussing the first couple years, the first 2 years, and how those went, how do you wish to see Southwest Flow Festival grow and change in the coming years? What's your vision for the upcoming events that you have going on?
Oh, buddy, where do I start?
Oh, he's got plans, y'all.
So I'd say the overarching sort of concept of the direction that I would like the Southwest Flow Festival to go is really that, and I'm not like slighting any other flow festival here, but like, at the end of the day, like we have enough flow festivals. There are enough fire festivals in the States. I mean, like, yeah, there could be more, and that's why I wanted to do the Southwest Flow Festival, is because we don't have anything here in the Southwest. Like, it's been tried in the past for whatever reason, this, that, or the other. Like, it didn't succeed or follow through for subsequent years. And like, man, fire drones, that's a long drive for us. And we've got a lot of people here who like clearly
you do
put together something special. So what I want to see is, and this started with like CPZ, right? I'm going to shout out to my boy Dean, who runs the community paint zone at Southwest Flow Festival. And what I want to do eventually with the Southwest Flow Festival is redefine and expand the term of flow. I do personally have a bit of a bone to pick with us being like the artists who flow, because we spin things in circles and sometimes other shapes, right? Like,
right.
Academically speaking, based on the scientific replicated account of this, I'm going to ask you this question. Do you know what category of athletes is able to achieve the flow state quickest and maintain it the longest?
I actually don't. Not off the top of my head. I might be able to think about that, but flow state in athletes is, I mean, maybe I might think about, like, just off the top of my head, maybe like basketball or something, like somebody who's like actively doing something that, it's just like, that's the first one that came to mind, but I'm curious, where does that question lead?
Rock climbing.
Oh, that's what's up. That's what's up. I've been rock climbing for quite a while, so that is very cool.
Like, you
Tell
need
me
to
about that.
find that flow. So like what I want to do, like I said early in the episode, like I've been a flow artist for almost 30 years and I didn't know it because I didn't know there was a word associated with that feeling, right? Right? Like Michael Jordan called it being in the zone.
Mm-hmm.
BB King, old jazz musicians, they called it being in the pocket, right? It's universal across all artistry. And I want to recognize that. And I want the Southwest Flow Festival to become not just like it will always have a very solid 6 foot thick concrete foundation of flow arts, but I want it to nod towards being a flow state festival.
Ooh, I love that.
And right, like that's where it kind of started with like Dean and bringing his crew in. Is like a little bit of background to the listeners is it is a collective art zone, so it's basically a freedom of expression zone that has an emphasis on spray paint and graffiti. So like they blast this container yard that we have every year with like the featured CPZ art project, and they have 3 full 40 length shipping containers that they just do their thing on.
It's so cool. It's so cool. I go and I make it a point to go and hang out with them for at least like, 30 minutes a festival. Every festival, I at least will go and hang out for like 30 minutes and just see what they're doing. They're always there blasting up the containers and having a great time with spray paint. And yeah, I love that you make that connection. I think that's something that sets this event aside from the other events that are happening in the same nature as you're really, even the aerialists, right? Like I haven't been to many flow festivals, but the ones that I've been to, I've never seen an aerialist perform at a flow festival. In a gala, I haven't seen that. Maybe, I haven't been to that many, but I think the aspects of this event that set yourselves aside from the others is it's very unique. You have so many different arts going on at the same time. So I think that's a really cool aspect and a really cool approach that I would love to see continue to grow in the future.
Yeah. And like one of our, not naming names yet, because it's still early and we gotta keep the people waiting.
Right.
But we are incorporating a very well-known and accomplished street dancer into our featured artistry this year. Right. So we're moving it into movement arts. Like I would love down the road to like bring out a half pipe and have BMX riders like just doing their thing. Like tell me that's not flow.
Dude, that is so cool.
So let's expand it. Let's do more. Like we typically will always have like a music as a flow art or songwriting as a flow art workshop that some of our headlining DJs attended last year. And it's like a friend of mine in Flagstaff, like a local musician who had like in my world, big name musicians and DJs like attending her songwriting as a flow arts workshop. Like
absolutely.
Yeah.
So big things coming, Evan, and this podcast, this episode in particular, we had to get through a huge chunk and make this about, the Southwest Flow Festival and the years that have happened, the years to come. It's a huge event in your life and a huge event in my life in different ways. Obviously, I'm just, a performer. I attend, I teach, I do, I love this event very much as well. Obviously, it's a huge part of your life, but we had to get through a huge section of Southwest Flow Festival. But this episode is also based around you as an artist, sir, and I will not let it get away from us because you are an incredible artist in your own right, and I absolutely love seeing you perform. And again, for the time period that you've been spinning and the excellence that you have been able to achieve in your own right is very admirable and very inspiring, hopefully to new artists that are coming along, seeing this man. He's only so many years in. It's awesome. Huge shout out to you. So I want to get into some of your poi inspirations. Let's get over to some of your favorite YouTube videos of poi spinning and poi juggling. We'll see what we got cooking up here. First video. It's a classic, folks. We've seen it maybe a couple other times on this podcast so far, but I want to hear, why do you love this video so much and why do you think it stood out to you?
For starters, this right there, this intro, right? Like that's something flow artists always struggle with, and at least something this flow artist always struggled with until I saw this video. And I saw how he was not spinning his poi. He was just, look at them. Look at my poi. Like making people look at his poi in interesting ways, and then a drop.
Ooh. And boy, does he drop it, folks. Oh,
so hard. I mean, those stalls for the stall chasers, this video has inspired so much of my style, from clean lines, just stalls that are like defying physics. The variation of stall chaser, like that he does just in the first minute, the anti-brids, the tech that was within, like, it felt so out of reach at the time. This was the first video I ever saw a tri-stall.
Mm-hmm. And the crowd goes crazy.
Right, based on the crowd's reaction, I think this might be the first time 90% of any flow artist saw a tri-stall. His wall plane cascade, like, that was the first time I saw most of this stuff, and he did it on fire.
Yeah.
Like, what was that? Come on. Acrobatics with your poi spinning?
He's unbelievable. He's unbelievable.
And all on the beat.
Tim has an incredible sense of music, and for those of you who don't know, and Tim is very, I don't know exactly how much he is involved in music, but the guy loves music and he has an incredible sense of music. I'm lucky enough, this is gonna be a little flex here for a second, all right? But I have Tim's playlist that I demanded from him. We did an episode with Tim. If you didn't see it, go see it. It's awesome. Tim's episode was a lot of fun. But after we recorded the episode, I'm like, Tim, please send me your playlist, because you have so much good music in all of your flow videos that you do. And I was like, please send me your playlist. And he did. But that is one of the best parts about Tim as an artist, is he's very in touch with the musicality of his performance. And this showcase is just such a prime example of that. Yeah,
absolutely.
Man, and the 3-point section just goes absolutely crazy. And there's some downtime. There's enough where, he had some build up and went crazy with 2, and then he has some downtime with 3, and then he's about to pop off with 3, and the song picks up again. So it's a journey of 2 through 3, and the build ups and the downs and the lows and the highs through it all. And I think that's really what inspires me so much about this video as well.
Yeah, and like similar to one of the other videos that I sent you, it's like this, he finds this point of like flow, where flow meets tech. He's moving, right? It's very dynamic. I love that. Love it. Can't get enough of it.
Absolutely. And Tim is, we've talked about him so much on this podcast, and I feel like I don't want to burn myself out talking about this man, but at the same time, we can look at the body of work that he has had over more than a decade of work that has been instrumental to the poi community's development, and he's just been relevant and killing it for so long. It's truly unbelievable. I can't give him enough props, and I think there's so much to take away from these performances. What a performer, what a flow artist. He's been at the forefront of tech poi, and the way that he spins is just truly incredible. Thank you very much for that one. That was a fantastic reference. We have another absolute legend coming up, Ronan McLaughlin, Roztok Flow Fest.
I think Roztok.
Okay, no, dude, listen, there's been an ongoing issue of Americans primarily mispronouncing this name.
There's sure. Like a Roztok.
So the first time, let me tell you a little funny story while we're watching the beauty of Ronan's performance here. So the first time I met Vojta, I was at Kindle, and I was with Cassie, and I was like, "Oh, you just got back from Roztok, right?" And she's like, "Dude, say that again." I was like, I'm American, don't judge me. And she's like, no, like there's actually a compilation of people saying it incorrectly. And I try to say it correctly now going forward, but I'm still like, dude, I mispronounce it all the time. But This is Vojta's Flow Festival which originally started, it was his birthday party is how this festival originated, which is crazy. Okay. Cool. But Ronan, the inventor and the godfather of contact poi, also a legend of poi in general, incredible performer, one of the best of all time. This performance is wonderful for so many reasons. I mean, Ronan is just a staple in the poi community for so many different reasons. Why do you think this video stood out so much to you?
I mean, like, I'm watching this, and I don't know if this is truth or not. This looks like a ad-lib performance. Like, yes,
it very well
some,
could
like,
be.
It
very
could be,
well
it may be choreographed, but the way that he flows with it, it just looks so natural and effortless. He's like the Bruce Lee of poise spinning. He is right.
Ooh, I'm
Like,
gonna tell him you said that. When I get him on, I'm gonna tell him you said that.
These stalls, his floats, just everything is so clean. And again, it's like, I think you might be seeing a little bit of a trend in my like inspiration here. Is like, it's clean, but it's also jaw-dropping to like both seasoned flow artists and muggles.
Absolutely, because people that don't know the tech style of Poi, they see the way primarily, like, they see the way that he's moving and the control that he has, and it doesn't look labored, it doesn't look difficult. He looks so in control, he looks so confident, he looks poised, and I love that he is able to take the time in between difficult patterns that are very technically difficult, but he takes time in between these patterns and he just spins them, and he just spins them in a simple way that looks beautiful.
Just doing in that last pattern, right? Like, he was like waiting for the build up till he got to those like classic Ronin tracer pedals, but like he was doing a 4x4 anti-spin fountain, and then he just switched it to a triquetra versus triquetra. Right, like pleasing the tech nerds out there.
Right.
But then,
and
like,
his control and his movement and his body posture.
Right, and that's what I was gonna say. His isolations, like he was just doing, like, he's like the king of isolations in my mind, and like that is a trick that is difficult, right? Like, that's one of the hardest like first things that you learn, I think, as a poise spinner, is like the just elusive isolations. And he's so clean and effortless, and that's just something that just like across the board captivates audiences.
Yeah, I could talk about Ronin for easily another 15 minutes, but we do have another video to get into.
Yeah.
One of our great friends, one of the many artists that has inspired both of us throughout the years, and a man that I am just incredibly grateful to have in my life in any capacity, Marvin Ong. We talked about it a little bit earlier, but again, tell us why this video is in your top 5 videos that you sent us as far as your references go.
I mean, the grace, the effortlessness. Like, I know, like, after talking with Marvin a lot, like, Ronin was one of his biggest influencers in his early days of poise spinning. This video right here is what made me want to buy a set of fire poi, right? Like, this video is what made me upgrade from like, I don't know, just, you know, spinning poi and practicing to like, oh, that's what it can be. Okay. And it's beautiful. His presentations are just flawless, and I appreciate that so much. Like, again, it's like not the most out of reach tech, but it's taking the transitions are just so perfect and thought out.
It's the way that he's doing it, not just what he's doing, right? Not just the patterns, but it's the way that he's executing the patterns. And I'm so happy that his alias is Grandmaster Ong, because he's truly exhibiting such a masterful technique as far as everything that he does, right? Everything that he executes in this video. And this is such a, you know, a staple in the podcast, and such a video that we've reviewed so many different times. And I think it's beautiful how many different artists from how many different styles that we all have, and how different you are from said person that's coming on the podcast and referencing this video. And people took inspiration from this video, and they used that inspiration and you know, took it in so many different directions, right? So he is truly one of the best to ever do it in a lot of ways. And it's like I said, it's the way that he's executing these patterns that makes it so special.
I'm so stoked he's been picking Poi back up again too. Don't tell Marvin I called him a Poi spinner.
we poke fun at Marvin, and he pokes fun back at us for being Poi spinners and flow artists, because he's now a prestigious club juggler. He's not just a Poi spinner.
He's a stringer.
Yeah, right. Yeah, we poke fun at him because, again, he there's jokes that go back and forth, but one of my earliest inspirations as well. So I'm very glad that you mentioned this video in here as your references.
Heck yeah.
And we get to hang out with Marvin all the time. It's like one of the best parts about being involved in the flow community. I know, it's so cool.
Just around the block.
Isn't it so crazy that we are able to see some of the best in the world, and we get the opportunity to be friends with some of these people and take knowledge from them and get to pick their brains about Poi and their journey and their excellence. It's a huge blessing in my life, as well as I'm sure yours as well.
Absolutely. So
we have another video here. Liz Knight's A Little Poi Night 2014. Tell me about this performance, because Liz is obviously I know who she is, and I have taken lots of inspiration from her as well. Tell me about this video and why you decided to include it.
Well, for starters, a nod to all the women in Poi who don't get recognized enough. Liz I don't know her personally. I followed her since the beginning of my Poi journey. And again, like, very similar. A lot of her transitions are what get me. They're just clean and creative and unique, and taking like these same old patterns that we all know, but like she just adds this level of spice and dynamicy and originality to them.
And Liz is one of the, I love that you say, and I love that you said it's, I don't mean to, I don't exactly remember directly what you said, but like a huge bump for female Poi spinners in the space, because Liz is not even just a great female Poi spinner. She is a great Poi spinner. She is a great artist, no matter what lens you put her through. She is so talented in so many different ways, and she is so well versed in many different areas of Poi: contact, tech patterns, flowers, performance, dance style. Like she checks all the boxes in so many different ways, and not only just her personal style and her personal skills, but she also led Women of Tech Poi, which was a huge movement for the ladies in the community that wanted to be empowered, and they wanted to be seen, and they wanted to be recognized in the same way that men are in this community. And she really drove that project in the early 2010s, and arguably one of the most successful Poi spinners of all time, man or woman, financially and in all respects, skill wise. I mean, I love that you included this video, and she is an under talked about artist in this space. And I love that you included this video, because she is just goddamn incredible. And another beautiful Fire Poi performance that we get to see. I'm noticing a trend here. You've included a lot of Fire Poi performances, which I love. And the last one that we have is not Fire Poi. It's the only one of the four that's not Fire Poi. And this is a video that gets mentioned a lot. Okay. But for good reason, because I guarantee you, if you are a Poi spinner and you watch this video, you have emotional attachment to it. It's giving you chills. There's no way.
Getting goosebumps right now.
There's no fucking way that you've seen this video and you're a Poi spinner and you didn't get chills watching this. I call bullshit, bro. I call bullshit. This performance, 100%. This video will give you a certain nostalgia and a certain feeling watching this video, hearing the crowd's energy and the time period and the tech that he was doing back then. Truly one of the best minds, one of the greatest minds, one of the most original motherfuckers that has ever been a part of our community.
Hands down. And another thing I want to call attention to in this video is the moments of silence in the crowd, where people just don't, jaws on the floor.
They just don't even make a sound.
Yeah, like he opens with Gunslingers in 2013. Come on.
I know. You know what's crazy about Jonathan? A lot of people that were not spinning prior to 2013 don't necessarily understand the revolution and the impact that Jonathan had on the poi community with gunslingers and with the 3 poi tech that he did. After this video came out, everybody that I knew started doing gunslingers. Everybody that I knew started picking up a 3rd poi. During that time period, I mean, he was revolutionary for the poi community in many ways, right? And his contribution cannot be overlooked. So glad that you added this video. And for somebody like yourself who started spinning, relatively later than, myself or some of the other folks that we've had on the podcast, like, I mean, it's just, it really speaks volumes to this video that after all the years, it still holds up and it's still one of the best of all time. It's still one of the best poi performances of all time. And it just really speaks to how ahead of the gate he was in this performance and his ability to spin. He was so far ahead of the game.
Yeah, it's just incredible. It's an emotional performance. You can feel the emotion that he has through this, and that scenery of Lake Tahoe.
It's beautiful,
at
man.
The sunset, it was just so beautiful.
It is an incredible moment for somebody to be able to witness that live. I can't imagine.
And again, 2013, and he's still doing things that are out of reach for a lot of 3 poi spinners.
11 years ago, the 3 poi patterns. I'm very into 3 poi nowadays. And
what?
I still, yeah, no, I'm very, I like 3 poi, okay? This podcast pushes a little 3 poi agenda up in here, okay? I definitely put my 3 poi influence out here on people, which is all in good fun, all right? But yeah, I mean, truthfully, Jonathan was, and what an ending, dude.
Yeah. Yep.
Ending, done. Ooh, so fucking
Drop the
good,
mics, man. All 3 of them.
Oh my God. Okay, well, we got through your favorite poi videos of all time, which they were all incredibly beautiful in their own regards. I'm going to push it over to Joey. He has a question from a fan, and I'm going to turn it over to Joey.
All right, Evan, we have one question got sent in here. This one's from @BoardLet'sGo. They asked, if you could eat one thing from your childhood, what meal would you choose?
Wow.
And a little out of pocket.
Yeah. One meal. Salmon chowder that my mom used to make when I was a kid.
Ooh, that sounds good. I grew up on the Bay Area, so yeah, I love chowders. That sounds so good.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
That's the one.
All right,
and as a pescatarian, it's one of the few meals I can still eat from my childhood.
Exactly. That's cool. All right. Well, I'll go ahead and kick it back over to Patrick. Thanks for answering that one. I know it's a little out of pocket.
For sure.
All right, Evan, we have a couple more topics to get through before we close out this podcast. Number one, I really want to ask you, what does your practice or your training look like? How do you prepare, if at all, for your sessions? Is it a more go with the flow type approach, or do you have a more regimented, drill-oriented style of your practice?
It honestly depends on the time of year. It depends on if I have an upcoming show to get ready for and choreograph, or do I have a festival coming up to perform for. Most of the time anymore, I do flow, right? Like I just flow for the sake of flowing. It's something that I love. Don't record it much these days. But right now I'm getting back into like a little bit more of a regimented structuring, because I just always like to revisit the basics. So like right now, for instance, it's funny, like I think my isolations and body tracers are like pretty all right. I can hang. I don't know how to do snakes.
Bullshit. I'll teach you. You know what's funny,
like,
Evan?
I can do this way perfectly, but when it comes to the switch,
I want you to continue on this point because I definitely know that you have more to say about your practice and training, but snakes specifically, I was years deep into poi and I was like, I don't fucking know snakes. I don't understand them. I don't get it. Like they're just elusive, dude. So I connect with you on that. But I'm gonna teach you snakes when I see you next, bro.
I'm not alone.
Okay, I got you.
Yeah, I got half of it perfectly. It's just
Yeah.
the second half. It's not clicking for me. So
I got you.
For specific types of patterns, I revisit. So like right now I'm revisiting snakes and gunslingers. Like I can do gunslingers, I can do the wraps. But specifically after taking Raleigh's gunslinger class at Southwest last year, I'm working more. I want the gunslinger flowers and I want gunslinger anti-brids more than anything. So like I'm hustling for those.
Let's go.
And that's very regimented, right? Just get comfortable here, just like a 3-beat, just like a one-handed fountain. Right? Get comfortable here. Okay. And get comfortable here. And getting damn it, I can't. Okay.
Right.
So yeah, I do have this at times regimented when I'm learning something new. It is incredibly regimented and it is incredibly, I shouldn't say incredibly, right? Like for me, I think it is. I focus on symmetry, equilibrium between both sides. If I can do it on this side, bet your ass I'm going to learn how to do it on this side.
Good man. Good man.
So when I'm learning new things or cleaning up things that I already know to expand upon them, very regimented. I'll typically spend, I guess to really like put numbers to that, first 5 minutes, I'm just flowing, warming up, getting things loose. Then from about like 20 to 45 minutes in, I usually find that's my point to drill, because that's usually after just flowing when I hit this thing.
Exactly.
I'm like, oh, that's right. I'm trying to learn that. All right. Drill. I got a 4x3 mirror in my bedroom. That's like my flow space. So I can, got the grid on it and everything. And then I go back to flow to just close it out and sort of like, it's like closing up. It's my meditation. It's movement meditation.
Yeah, man. And that's one of the coolest things that I've been focusing on with people lately is what does their practice and what does their flowing sessions look like? Because some folks are more oriented, like on the extreme end. It's like Bo is like, I am specific about everything, right? And he drills super hard. But on some ends, it's like Cassie is a great example. I mentioned her so much on this podcast, but Cassandra Smythe, for those of you who don't know, she is one of the most interesting people that I've ever talked to on this podcast, because she talks about how Poi is just such a mental health practice and it's such a self-care practice. And she really focuses on that aspect of it. And she's an incredible juggler. She's an incredible talented artist, right? But she definitely views it as a more of a meditation and a more of a self-care practice. And I think that's just such a beautiful aspect of training and practicing. So
yeah. It's funny you mentioned that. I met Cassie at the burn this past year, Drowning Man. And right before the rain came, right before the rain really started, I think it was like Saturday night, her and I were flowing together at was it Ego Tree? Anyway, one of the big stages. And that's what like a large part of our conversation was just like the mental health benefits and like the movement therapy of flow arts.
She's dope. She's one of my biggest inspirations in the Poi community, which brings me to my next question, Evan. Who are some of your biggest inspirations in the Poi or flow arts world at the moment?
Well, I do have to give a nod right back at yourself, our lovely host for the Poidcast, and your partner in the Poidcast, Joey, right? Like, dude, talk about like this whole, wait, how long have you been spinning Poi? Get the fuck out of here.
Joey, how long?
2 years.
2 years.
Yeah, get the fuck out of here.
Yeah.
Right. So like that's a huge inspiration. And I'm really like honored to be able to have watched like Joey's journey, I think like pretty damn near the start. And then like
that's my man.
Like, God, his progression has been unreal.
That's my man.
Other people like in the 3-Poi world, like yourself, Voita, huge inspiration. It was really hard to not put a Voita video in there for my top videos, but like again, just the effortless grace and presentation and athleticism of where flow meets tech and skill. Beacon,
Beacon, shout out to Beacon, an under talked
Shout out
about
to
man in the world. We don't talk about Beacon enough on this podcast, man.
Yeah,
Beacon's
go
the fucking
follow
man.
him. My God, right? Voted top poi spinner in the world. He needs more people seeing what he's doing, and also
For
just a
real.
solid dude who's here to support the community.
Such a nice guy to flow with. Such a
nice
fucking
guy.
fun guy to flow with too.
Yep. Always willing. It's like you just met like, some person.
Right.
Like, oh yeah, you realize you just got a lesson from like one of the best poi spinners in the world, and he acted like it's it's nothing. It's nothing to him.
Yeah.
It's great. I met him
Yeah.
at like a little private like Renegade in Sedona a few years back for the first time, and it was like I didn't really know who he was, and then I saw him spinning. I was like, "Who are you?"
Yeah, totally, man. And, it's funny because like a part of me when you mentioned Joey, I'm just absolutely so proud of him for the initiative and the work and the just how much he's put into it, right? Because like you know how many people have had the opportunity to learn from me throughout the years, how many people I've wanted to teach, and how many people I've wanted to put up and make them a better poi spinner and to teach them, right? But how many people actually took me up on the opportunity, right? So I have to be like my ego and me is like, well, he had somebody who was super experienced, he had somebody who has been in the game.
Definitely see your style in his, for
Sure. And it was awesome to be able to mold someone into like my style of poi spinning and what I want and what I value and like my style
creating
of
a
poi
monster.
Exactly. Like I love it, right? But at the same time, it's like again, how many people have had the opportunity to be there with me, and how many people actually took me up on the opportunity? He's really the only one. So you got to give it up to the individual behind, the student behind the teacher, and not just the teacher. Because I know I've had experience. I know I've had an extensive amount of experience in the poi game, and I appreciate you mentioning me on that list as well. I appreciate that very much. But got to give it up to Joey and his willingness to learn and his willingness to pursue it and to stay dedicated. And he was so ready to have a new hobby and a new pursuit and a new love in life. And it couldn't have come at a better time for him. So very, very proud of him as well. And I love that you mentioned Joey, man, because what an up and coming star. What an up and coming star.
Totally.
And a great tech guy, by the way. BT Dubs.
And a great guy.
Yeah, BT Dubs.
And then also, like, I've got a whole list of the female poi spinners who are out in the world who inspire me on the daily, right? Christina, Hazel, Cassie, like you said, I think Cassie was the first person I saw juggling poi. And then met her, again at Burning Man. I was like, what the fuck? Taz, first person I ever saw with my own eyes spinning 3 poi. That was at Sonic Bloom in 2019, and I was just like, wait, what?
Taz is a dope dude and also a great friend of the channel. Shout out to Taz. We love Taz around here. Go check out his interview if you haven't seen it. He's a great guy. Wonderful story. Very inspirational in his own right. I love that you mentioned him.
Also, I got to shout out my boy Chesh.
Oh, dude. Chesh, dude. You know what? Chesh has been mentioned quite a bit in the recent episodes, and for good reason. We absolutely love him as well. He's a great friend of mine. What a wonderful individual to spin with, and a pleasure to see burn and perform. Like, holy shit, that guy is fucking incredible, man.
And he threw down at Gem and Gem this year. It was amazing. His pants are all blistered up. I'm like, dude, you all right? Yeah, I'm gonna go burn again. Follow your heart, buddy. Okay.
For real, bro. For real. Well, Evan, I'm gonna leave it up. Any closing thoughts? Any shout outs? We did cover some artists that you are very inspired by. You gave some shout outs to Hux and to some of the artists that have inspired you through the years. But any closing remarks or closing thoughts that you want to close out the episode with? It was a fantastic episode. I'm going to leave it up to you to close this out.
Absolutely. Thank you for this platform, the opportunity to be on the show. I think the biggest thing that I'd like to close this episode on is just one of my favorite quotes. I don't know. I'm sure I'm not the first person to say this, but I put it in every one of my videos is find your flow. That could be so many things. Find what it is that gets you out of bed. Find what it is that you look forward to. You don't have to be an expert at it. You just have to do it, right? People ask all the time, how can I be so good at spinning poi? How did you learn? Drop the thing more than most people have picked it up.
Ooh, I'm gonna steal that quote, bro.
Please do. I think it needs to be spread more and more. Find your flow and drop your shit more than most people have picked it up.
Evan, great piece of wisdom. what a great piece of advice right there. We covered so many fantastic topics. You know, on top of being such a wonderful and cleanly and dedicated artist in your own regards, you are also you carry such depth in your skills and your knowledge as an organizer, as a leader, as somebody who is really doing special things in the community. I got to give it up, man. It's been a wonderful episode, and I'm very blessed and honored to have you as a friend and to have you in my life in any regard as well. You're a fantastic individual, and it's been a wonderful episode 29, man. And You know what? I will just one last thing, guys. If you got this far, go to Southwest Flow Festival, and you will meet myself and Evan and hopefully Joey's ass there too. Joey, I'm going to peer pressure him into going this year again. But you will for sure meet myself, and you'll for sure meet Evan and many other extremely talented and passionate artists in their own regards. It's been a fantastic episode. We'll see you there.
Heck yeah.
You want to throw up his tag real quick. ET Flow Home on Instagram. Support him. Support Southwest Flow Festival, and we will see you next year.